Welcome to Psalm 123, the mercy of the Lord. There's going to be a subject in this psalm that we're going to go into in depth. It's not the mercy of the Lord. I did these titles 15, 20 years ago, and now I'm going through the Bible as I am. I see other things I could have made to be the title or the main theme of the psalm. But it begins, O thee, I'll read some in the Greek, O thee ton anavathmon, prose iratos ophthalmus mu ton katikunta in to urano, idhu os ophthalmi dhulon is hiras ton kirionav ton, os ophthalmi paidhiskis is hiras tis kyrias avtis, utos I ophthalmi imon pros kyrion ton theon imon, eos u ikterise imas. An ode of the steps. This is the fourth step. To you I lifted my ophthalmos, an ophthalmologist, ophthalmology, eyes. That's a derivative. O one dwelling in the heaven. O one dwelling in the heaven. What is exactly the heaven? The whole of God's creation is, I believe, called the cosmos. It only appears maybe 6 or 7 times, but it's number 2889, and it says in Genesis 2:1, and the heaven and the earth were completed, and all the cosmos of them, so even more than the heaven and the earth. In Deuteronomy 4:19, it says, and lest at any time looking up into the heaven and beholding the sun and the moon and the stars, and all the cosmos of the heaven wandering, and he's warning about idolatry, astrology, basically. And then in Isaiah 14:21, he says, and it will be in that day, God shall bring the hand against the cosmos of the heaven and against the kings of the earth. Now, what exactly it's talking about there is hard to say. Now, the heaven is basically, as I see it, divided into 2 subjects. You have the lower heaven and the upper heaven. And we'll begin with the lower heaven, going from the furthest place away from earth to the closest thing to earth. It's mentioned in the Bible. And it's the furthest out is called outer space. And in the Bible, the furthest object that it mentions in outer space is the constellation Orion, which is a group of stars, and they're visible. They're 1,350 light years in distance. And the light years, I think it has something to do with how long it takes light to travel. In Job 38:31, it said, God said, did you open the barrier of Orion? And then in Isaiah 13:10, it says, for the stars of the heaven and Orion and all the cosmos of the heaven shall not give of their light. So something is going to happen with light getting to the earth, either the problem with the objects reflecting the light or the earth being covered over somehow. The next closest object that's mentioned in the Bible to the earth is Pleiados, the Pleiades, a 7 star of the constellation Taurus. And it's also visible, and it's 444 light years away. It mentions in Job 38:31, God mentions, and he says, and do you perceive the bond of Pleiades? Then the next closest object is Arcturus. It's the brightest star in the constellation Abotis, and it's 37 light years away. And it's mentioned in Job 9:9, the one making Pleiades and Hesperus and Arcturus. Now, Hesperus we'll get to a little bit later here. Then there are the what's called the luminaries, the Phosteres. And the two luminaries are the sun and the moon, and it says in Galatians 1:16, and God made the two luminaries, the great luminary for beginnings of the day, and the lesser luminary for beginnings of the night and the stars. The first luminary that's the furthest away is the sun. Helios is the Greek word. We get helium from that. Number 2246. It's 93 million miles from Earth, and in Revelation 6:12, it says, and when he opened the sixth seal, even a great earthquake took place, and the sun became black as sackcloth made of hair. And there are many other places you can look up number 2246, sun, that explains way more things than what I'm going through here. This is just a rough go-through. Now, the next closest object to Earth is Hesperos, or Hesperus, and it's also called Eosphoros, and they're both referring to Venus. But there were two gods associated with the planet Venus, which is 25 million miles away from Earth, and the Hesperos word is the star of the dusk, the early morning star. And in Job 38:32, which says, and Hesperus with its tail, will you lead it? And then Eosphoros, which is the other god attached to Venus, is the dawn bringer. Eosphoros, and in Isaiah 14:12-16, has more than what I have here, but it says, oh, how Eosphoros fell from out of the heaven, the one rising by morning. The one sending to all the nations was broken unto the earth. You can study who that was, or possibly who it was, again in Isaiah 14:12-16. The next closest object to the earth is the moon. It's 239,000 miles away. It's called Selene. In Greek, it's number 4582 on our numbering system. And Joel 2:31 says, the sun shall convert into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and apparent day of the Lord. And this was reaffirmed in Revelation 6:12. It said, and the moon became as blood. And in Revelation 8:12, it says, and the fourth angel trumped, and the third of the sun was struck, and the third of the moon, and the third of the stars, that a third of them should be darkened, and day should not appear for a third of it, and the night in like manner. Now, how that's going to happen, again, it might be some covering over the earth where they are darkened, or they may be darkened themselves somehow. The next closest object that has come to Earth are two that we really don't have the dimensions of how far they were, but the first one, it was the Star of Bethlehem, and that's in Matthew 2:2-10. We're going to only go through a little bit here and show you what it says about it being a star. And it says, the Magi say, where is the one having born King of the Jews? When they're asking Herod in Jerusalem. For we beheld his star in the east. Now, I'm not sure if it means the star was in the east or they were in the east and beholding the star in the west. But it says, and we came to do obeisance to him. I would think the second we beheld his star, we were beholding it in the east. And it was to the west because that's where it was from, where the Magi were in Iran, which is Persia then. And we came to do obeisance to him. And then later when they go to the Bethlehem, it says, and behold the star which they beheld led before them. So it was moving until having come, it stood above of which the child was. So this is an unusual star. It's not like a star just going and keeps going. What would cause it to stop? I don't know of any star that does that. I guess unless it was coming directly towards you, it might, and the light took so long you wouldn't want to sit there and measure it for, and so that's a possibility, either one, I suppose. I'm not an astronomer, so I'm just guessing. And then it says, then beholding the star, they rejoiced a great joy exceedingly. So I can imagine they're following this star where it's going and it's leading them. I don't know how they were doing it, but they did it, and it took them over the place where the child was, it says, not the baby. And then the other one, which is a possibility, which could be the same as the Star of Bethlehem, in Revelation 21:10, it says, and it showed to me the great city, holy Jerusalem, coming down from out of heaven from God, which was a tetragon, a cube coming down from heaven, and it did stop at the earth. So it's possible that that's what it was. And it stopped, and then it shined on the earth to these magi. Now, the next thing that would be closest to the earth would be what I would call the lower heaven of the earth, which is Uranus, Uranos, number 3772. There's a lot of occurrences of that word, of 781 in the Bible. And it's the atmosphere, basically, of the earth. And it's divided into 5 layers, and it goes out to 6,214 miles. The furthest layer is called the exosphere, and it has some dusts and things in it, and it has very little pull of gravity, but it's considered part of the atmosphere. And of course, spaceships go through that exosphere. And the fourth closest is the thermosphere. 372 miles is how far it goes, and that's where the International Space Station is located. The third closest is the mesosphere, which means middle, meso, and that's 53 miles, and basically rocketry would go through the mesosphere. And then the second closest sphere is the stratosphere. It goes up 30 miles. Ozone is located there, and some aircraft can get up to 85,000 feet in the stratosphere. Then the closest is called the troposphere, between 5 and 10 miles away from the Earth, and that's where the weather is. It makes climate, and as far as going out that far, an Andean condor can fly up to 21,000 feet, and that would be in the troposphere. Now, there is actually something outer in this heaven that even comes closer, and that's absinthos, number 894 in the Apostolic Bible. In Revelation 8:10 and 11, it says, and the third angel trumped, and a great star fell from out of heaven, burning as a lamp, a star, and it fell austere, and it fell upon the third of the rivers and upon the springs of the waters, and the name of the star is called absinthos. And the third of the waters became into absinthos or absinthium, and many of the men died from the waters, for they were made bitter. And we have been hit by asteroids, and the gases can be deadly, as I've read. So this may be, it's called an austere in the Bible, but not but it could be an asteroid. Then we have the transformational instrument, if you want to call it, that was between the heaven and the earth, and that's Nephilos, number 3507, and that is a cloud. Now, not the cloud that's right above your head looking out at the daytime and seeing them, but this is a special cloud. It says in Acts 1:9, and having said these things of their looking, he, Jesus, was lifted up, and a cloud undertook him from their eyes. Now, this cloud goes from the lower heaven into what I call the upper heaven. In Luke 21:27, it says, and then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and much glory. So he's coming from the upper heaven to the lower heaven to the earth in a cloud. Then in Revelation 11:12, it says, ascend here. And they ascended into the heaven in the cloud. And that were the two witnesses of Revelation 11. You can read the story about them there. And now we get into the upper heaven. Uranos, again, number 3772. And we're going to go into the upper heaven, into who and what is in the upper heaven. The word heaven is the same for the lower and the upper. It says in Matthew 5:48, you shall be then yourselves perfect, as your Father in the heavens is perfect. So the Father is in the heaven. Jesus is in the heaven. Matthew 3:17, it says, and behold, a voice from out of the heavens, saying, this is my Son, the beloved, in whom I take pleasure. In John 6:38, Jesus says, for I have descended from the heaven. In 1 Thessalonians 1:10, it says, and to await his Son from out of the heavens, whom he raised from the dead, Jesus. So he is coming back in the cloud. Acts 7:56, behold, I view the heavens being opened, and the Son of Man standing at the right of God, is what Stephen saw. He could see into the upper heaven. And Paul, I believe, went to the upper heavens. Revelation 22:16, he says, I, Jesus, sent forth my angel to testify to you these things unto the assemblies. I am the root and the race of David, the bright early morning star. So he's tying himself into a star somehow, a luminary maybe. Their angels are in the heavens, in the upper heaven. Daniel 4:13, it says, I viewed in a vision of the night upon my bed, and behold, a sentinel, even a holy one from heaven. And the sentinel could be separate than an angel, it could be an angel. John 1:51, it says, Amen, amen, I say to you, Jesus says, from now on you shall see the heaven opening, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. So apparently they saw that, or they were going to see it. Revelations 12:7-8, it says, and there was war in the heaven, Michael and his angels to wage war with the dragon, and he prevailed not, nor was a place found for him any longer in the heaven. So now we have the angels, but then we see the dragon. We'll get that in here in a few seconds. Then in Revelations 9:1, it has an interesting verse. It says, and I saw a star falling from out of the heaven unto the earth. That would have been John, the writer, and was given to him the key of the well of the abyss where Satan was released. Now, the star falling from out of the heaven, if it was Jesus or if it was an angel, it doesn't say. There are harpists in the heaven in 14:2 of Revelation. In Revelation 19:1 is a vast, great multitude. And in 19:11, there was one on a white horse. And in 1914, talks about militaries in the heaven dressed in white. What was in the heaven? Well, in Acts 7:49, we're told, the heaven is my throne, and the earth a footstool for my feet. And that is, so the heaven is my throne. And this talks about thrones being in heaven in other places. A temple is in heaven. It says in Revelation 11:19, and the temple of God was opened in the heaven, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord was seen in his temple. So the ark also. And then in Revelation 4:1, a door opening into heaven, a trumpet or trumpets in 4:1, a scroll in 5:3, seals in 8:1, and harps in 14:2. Now those are the people or the beings in heaven and the things in heaven. The next section I'm going to talk about is what I call, for lack of a better term, the morphology. It's not what was in there exactly, but it's about the heaven that relates to it so closely that we need to go through these subjects. The first is the kingdom. In Matthew 11:12, it says, and from the days of John, the one immersing, until just now, the kingdom of the heavens is forced and is snatched by assailants. The kingdom of the heavens is approaching. Jesus told the people when he saw them. There was what's called the Mazaroth, a zodiac, really, except it's called Mazaroth is a Hebrew word, I believe. And the zodiac has 12 signs, as does the Mazaroth, and it's number 3099.2. And in 2 Kings 23:5, it says about the Mazaroth, and he incinerated the idolatrous priests, one of the kings, and the ones burning incense to Baal, and to the sun, and to the moon, and to the Mazaroth, and to all the military of the heaven. And the military was basically the stars. And the Mazaroth was talking about astrology here, and he put them to death. In Job 38:32, it says, God says, or will you open Mazaroth in its time? So it's an interesting subject. You'd have to go into Wikipedia to delve in it more than I have. Then the military, as it mentioned, and also in Zephaniah 1:5, even the ones doing obeisance upon the roofs to the military of the heaven, which would be the stars, and they can be good and bad. And the heaven is related to a god in mythology. And it says in Amos 5:2, and you took up the tent of Molech and the star of your god, Riphan. So a star is related to the gods. This is what they worshipped, bowed down to. Then it talks about, the Son of Man talks about in Revelations 16-20, and having 7 stars in his right hand, the Son of Man, and the 7 stars are angels of the 7 assemblies. So the angels also. Then it talks about the blasphemous ones who in Jude 1:13, they're wandering stars. That may be an allegory, to whom the infernal region of darkness is being kept into the eon, which would be Hades, hell. Overcomer is related to the stars. Revelation 2:28 says, and I will give to him the early morning star, the overcomer. And a woman is related to this heaven in Revelation 12:1. And a great sign appeared in the heaven, a woman wearing the sun and the moon underneath her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Now, what are these 12 stars and how does that relate? We'll find out. And then last is the dragon in Revelations 12, 3 and 4. It says, "And appeared another sign in the heaven, and behold, a great fiery dragon having 7 heads. And his tail drags the third of the stars of the heaven, and did cast them to the earth." And what's that all about? When that's going to happen? I believe it's in the future. And exactly what these stars are going to be, heaven help us if it's being dropped on the earth by the dragon. Now, we'll go back up to Psalm 123, and it continue in verse 2. It says, "Behold, as ophthalmi, eyes of bondmen are to the hands of their masters, and as the eyes of the maidservant to the hands of her lady, so our eyes are to the Lord our God, until of which he should pity us." Thus living on this planet Earth with all the upheavals and politics and natural occurrences, animals, impersonal problems, we want pity from God. God, pity us. We're in bad shape. We need you. Show mercy on us, O Lord. Show mercy on us in the imperative. Mercy. We deserve terrible things because we're in bad shape. For unto much we are filled of contempt. Now, the next verse, it says, our soul was more greatly filled by scorn to the ones that prosper, and the contempt to the proud ones. Now, that's kind of hard for me to try to figure out exactly. I believe the contempt of other people or the contempt that they feel, that he feels. For much we are filled of contempt, it's filled, but what is causing it? Ourselves or the scorn of the ones of others? That's probably what it is. Psalm 124. I didn't write down what the subject is, but we'll find out. You'll find out next video seminar if you join us, and I hope you do. And until then, God bless.